I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Church Universal, community of saints, forgiveness of sins, resurrection of body, and life everlasting.
Father heaven, we come this morning, bow our heads upon our heart. We come to this to say thank you. Thank you, Father, for another day, a day that we never seen before. And thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving us the mind to serve and just continue to have mercy upon us. Dear Father, you can go by the hospital, the sick room today, Father. Each day can pain, 2 days fever body that Holy will. Continue to have mercy. Dear Father, going by the nursing home today, Father. Regulate their mind, Father. Comfort everybody that Holy will. You just have mercy, Father. And dear Father, we come to study your word. Yes. I pray that we be able to understand the word we apply to our daily life. Yes. And just continue to do us and have mercy. Dear Father, thank you for the one that pushed their way out this morning, Father. And the one that desired to come and can't come, Father, that just be with them in a special way. Dear Father, look down on the one that seemed unconcerned today, Father. Yes. I pray, Father, you turn them around whenever that is. I don't know, Father, you God, beside you, there's no other. These are the blessings I saw in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I'll serve. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. Forgive those that trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Today's lesson is number 4, June the 23rd, 2024. Full assurance. That's the scripture, Hebrews 6:9 through 20. Focus scripture, Hebrews 6:9 through 20. The key word, we have this hope, a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul. I hope that the inner shine behind the curtain, where Jesus, a forerunner on our behalf, having become a high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Hebrews 6:9, 19 and 20. Now, even though we speak in this way, beloved, we are confident of better things in your case, things that belong to salvation.
10. For God is not unjust. He will not overlook your work and the love that you show for his sake in serving the saints, as you still do.
Well, and we want each one of you to show the same diligence, so as to realize the full assurance of hope to the very end.
12. So that we may not sluggish, not imitators of those who through faith and patience inherit promises.
13. When God made the promise to Abraham, because he had no one greater by whom to swear, he swore by himself.
14. Saying, I will surely bless you and multiply you.
15. And thus Abraham had patiently endured, attaining the promise.
16. Humans, of course, swear by someone greater than themselves, and an oath given as confirmation, putting an end to all dispute among them.
17. In the same way, when God desired to show even more good to the heirs of promise, the unchangeable character of his purpose, he guaranteed it by an oath.
18. So that through two unchangeable things, in which it is impossible that God will prove false, We have taken refuge like strongly urged to seize the hope set before us.
19. We have this hope, a sure, steadfast anchor of the soul, a hope that him, the inner, shine behind the curtain. All of that.
When Jesus the forerunner on our behalf has entered into heaven, our high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek.
They belong to bread. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other God before me.
Lord, have mercy upon us, and incline our hearts to keep this law.
Hear, O Christ, our Savior, that the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind. This is the first great commandment. And the second like to it, that the Lord thy neighbor and thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Amen.
Teachers now take their class.
Good morning to everyone. Good morning. Everyone has had a decent morning so far. Hopefully the start to the week this will give us a jump start to the week to re-energize us as much as we can. Still actually keep Sister Gibson in prayer. It'll actually keep Sister Jasmine and her family in prayer. Last her nephew yesterday. What's the name of the church? Whatever the name of the church is. We got there and the AC was out in the church, so they tried to move us to another part of the church, and that one wasn't working. Philadelphia. So, things happen. And I was telling Brother McKay, I thought about it on the way here. I could give anything to the lesson. Maybe the Lord is trying to tell us something. Because if we can't deal with this here, we may be determined from some stuff that don't allow people to get us in a situation to where it would cause us to be somewhere where we're trying to constantly defend. Amen. But get into our lesson today. Full assurance. Full assurance. Very interesting lesson. Dealing with hope, dealing with faith, but also dealing with struggle. And it amazes me. It seems like every week. Every lesson that we have, it is not only talking about stuff that was happening then, it is dealing with some stuff that is happening right now. And dealing with some stuff that we may be going through at that time. And it makes you wonder, Lord, you know, we know that you can do everything but fail, and everything is predestined and preordained. For us, when you had the author write this, did you already know I was going to be going through this? So it makes you wonder, but let us get into the introduction, and we're going to kind of go through this as quickly as we can this morning. The book of Hebrews originated as a letter that was written to a group of Christian converts who were undergoing severe persecution from both the Roman government and leaders of the Jewish community. The Roman government recognized Judaism as a legitimate religion, but they had no tolerance for Christianity. Jewish leaders, on the other hand, were pressuring Christians, both Jews and Gentiles, to convert to Judaism in addition to Christianity. As a result, some Christian converts seemed inclined to abandon their faith in Jesus Christ and his teaching, turning to Judaism, or a hybrid form of Judaism and Christianity, were being considered. How would you respond in these circumstances? I think that's a good question. Anyone care to even attempt to answer that, or any thoughts on the introduction? One thing, we always try, and I guess it's in our nature, to compromise. We try our best to compromise because we don't like causing problems. We don't want to stir the pot. And the case of the Hebrews during this time, they were being pressured. They were being pressured, persecuted, and killed. So they was trying to figure out a way to do both. Sometimes we hurt ourselves trying to figure out how to do both. Sometimes we stress ourselves out and cause unwanted pain, unwanted suffering, because we're trying to figure out how to be in the world and of the world. We try to figure out how we could be a Christian on Sunday and a club hopper on Saturday. You know, we try to figure out how we could be a saint on one day and a sinner the next. We try to figure out how we can do both. And the more we try to figure it out, the more we realize we're just hurting ourselves. Because while the Christians were trying to do both, the reality is all they were doing was hurting themselves spiritually. And that's something that we have to grapple with, I think, in the world that we live in. When it comes to politics, religion, and sports, you can lose, you can have fights over them three things. And I didn't include money. Money is, you know, but politics, religion, and sports, when you bring it up in certain avenues, especially at work, you can end up fighting. All right? You can end up fighting at the family reunion. And I ain't talking about over spades and dice and all of that. I'm talking about politics, religion, and sports. So instead of compromising sometimes the best thing to do is separate yourself. Even though it was corporate worship, they had to go and worship corporately. Sometimes when they see other people come, you just kind of, like they say, exit stage right. Just don't fool with certain people, because we realize that when you deal with certain people that don't believe in what you believe in, it's either two things gonna happen, or three things. You're gonna convince them, they're gonna convince you, y'all gonna end up hating each other for life. So if you can't convince them, that means they're trying to convince you. And if they're not gonna convince you, sometimes it's best to agree to disagree and stop trying to live a hybrid life. You had some, Sister Sim?
No.
Okay. Okay. So they were trying to live a hybrid life. They were trying to do hybrid. Hybrid works sometimes. And you know, people at work, they do hybrid work. They work from home and they go to work. We're the City of Tallahassee Electric Department is trying to implement a hybrid work schedule. But even with that, some people are not disciplined enough to do hybrid, because when they're at home, there ain't gonna be a bit more work. There ain't gonna be a bit more work, and they're gonna say they work. So we had to put stuff in place, Sister Britt, to tell them, if we call you and you can't get back within an hour, we got a problem. Matter of fact, you got to identify your at home where you're working from. So we can have a record of that address. But they were trying to do something that was gonna fail. Because God had already told them you can't worship two gods. You cannot, but they were still trying to figure out a way to do it. Telling the Bible story. Will somebody read that the first section of it?
The writer of Hebrews approached his task in a systematic way. The first step in resolving a problem is always to identify it. Therefore, the 6th chapter of the book of Hebrews begins with what may be described as harsh truth. The writer identified the problem as spiritual immaturity, and he rebuked his readers for not responding to adverse circumstances with spiritual maturity. He continues his message by admonishing the Christians to avoid the sin of hypocrisy and warn them of its dangers. The solution, according to the writer, will come as they engage in spiritual growth that would occur as they return to the basis of Christianity. This would require going back to where they first believed and moving forward as practicing Christians who model Jesus Christ and his teachings. Hebrews 6:8. The writer's tone shifts with our printed text, Hebrews 6:9-20. Like a good parent, he justifies the earlier tone as essential to needed corrections, but also as evidence of his love.
Anything in this section before we get into the hope of salvation, Hebrews 6:9-12?
The one thing that stood out to me, and I think about it as far as myself constantly, because we, like you said, we're living in this world, and sometimes we are of the world, not just in the world, and that's going back to where we first believed. Some people think, well, no, I can't say some people think. Well, it seems like some people think that once I've been saved, I'm saved forever. But sometimes we need to go back to the beginning to know what caused us to become saved and how much we love Jesus, and it doesn't hurt to go around the altar again. That stood out to me because I think about me sometimes getting caught up in so much stuff on the job and in society as itself. And I'm like, Lord, don't let me lose track, because you can lose track.
And great point. I'm gonna start there and go back for a second. We do have to go back to we say go back to the old landmarks. First thing that pops out, the same thing it took you to get it. It's the same thing it's gonna take to keep you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We always say that. So every now and then we have to go back, right? And watch this. When they built the car, they built the car last. But you always got to take that car back to the mechanic. Sometimes it ain't nothing wrong with it. But you still need to take it back and get oil change. Every now and then you got to take it back and get a tune-up. You got to take it back and do maintenance. That is just like us. Because we're in the world. And because the world and the environment beats down on us, we got to go back every now and then and get a tune-up. We got to go every now and then and get a checkup. God made our bodies to last. But every now and then, we still need to go get that physical. We still need to go see the doctor. So it's the same way in our spiritual walk. We still got to go back and see the doctor to help our spiritual selves out. Our spiritual selves need a tune-up every now and then. Our spiritual selves need reassurance every now and then. So that's the same thing. We have to go back. But the harsh, as it says, the harsh truth, the writer identifies the problem as spiritual immaturity. We don't go back. We don't think we need to go back because of spiritual immaturity. When you're secure you know that there's some things that are wrong with you. You know, physically, as we get older, I think it's more hard-headed, you know. We know there are some things that are not right with our bodies. We've been with our bodies long enough to know something ain't right. But what do you do when you see something just ain't right? The harsh reality is we're immature. Right? We try to put it off. We try to convince ourselves it ain't what we think it is. Right? That's a sign of immaturity.
Yes.
Because a mature person in a situation that I'm included in this, know something wrong, then try to self-diagnose it. Sister Linda gonna get one. Maybe Sister Linda joke when she says something. You know, listen, I asked her, did she go to Dr. Google? Because Google will have you believing you got it. When you ain't got it. And it's a sign of, I ain't gonna say immaturity, but it's a sign of society, because we allow society to tell us a lot of stuff. And we've got comfortable with society. We've got comfortable with it. So why go to the doctor and spend that money when I can just
Or know what somebody else said was wrong with them, I got the same problem. What's wrong with them?
I was looking at the joke, and I like from King Jackson. The guy went to the doctor, and I think it was on House. I can't remember what it was I was watching. But he said he got all the symptoms and all that his lady had, and he said he went to the doctor because he had uniforms. He had sweat, he had because the same symptoms that she had. Right? So, is that spiritual immaturity? Is that immaturity in some ways? But we have to realize we have to go back. We got to go back to the person that made us, just like with our cars. We got to take our cars back, and every now and then we got to go back to the doctor. So it's the same way. We have to go back sometimes to separate ourselves from this fast-paced world, to get back to who we are. And this world will try to convince us that we're something we're not. This world will convince us that we need to be somebody we shouldn't be. And not only that, to try to convince us we shouldn't be in a situation that we shouldn't really be in. All right? So we got to go back sometimes. We have rededication ceremonies to rededicate ourselves. That's why we do altar call, and that's why we do the invitation to discipleship, even though when the pastor's looking out, we see everybody in here. We know everybody that's been baptized. We know everybody that didn't confess Christ, but we still do it because sometimes it's just a rededication. I've been on the straight and narrow, but I veered off somewhere. And because I veered off, I need to get back right. So I just need prayer. I just need to have a conversation with the Lord, and I did it at an altar call. And the Lord told me to go back up and rededicate yourself. You had some broken question?
Well, one of the biggest problems we had with our city was when we got a problem we need to resolve, we don't want to identify it. And we go right along until knowing it, we know the problem. Because all the time it be us.
It be us. And that's so true. Watch this. We know. Let me talk about me for a minute, sister. With my pre-diabetic, I know I'm going to be taking my I know I'm supposed to be doing all that. So blood work kind of come around. I don't know how to even do what I'm supposed to do. So I skipped the blood work. Then show that doctor, I said, why you do blood work? Well, you know, I forgot. No, I didn't forget. I know it's gonna point out. I ain't did nothing I supposed to be did. And that's what I was gonna do our physical. Cause we know we ain't did nothing we supposed to be did. Then, Sister Britt, it's just me. I wait till the 2 weeks before and say I'm gonna do it. I'm going fast. I'm going fast. I ain't gonna eat like that. You ain't eating like fast stuff. I'm going fast. And maybe that help, but it's still gonna show. It's still gonna show. It's still gonna show. So we got to realize that because of our, and I don't know if it's immaturity in that way, but sometimes, yeah, it's just us. We're immature in the way that we think we can bypass the system. We think we can trick the system. We think we can trick God. We think we can get away with it. We think that we can compromise. And that's not the case. We got to go back to what we first found out. And we'll realize that the reason why we found it is because we were going through something. The reason why we found it is because we were at a point, a breaking point. And it was either lose our mind or be reassured by Christ. Each and every one of us are here in church because we went through something. Now, there are some that have been in church their whole life. We have, you know, I would use Brother RJ, if he was here as an example. He's been, Sister Sim had been in church his whole life. So he knows church, but he still went through some stuff while he's been in church. You have them youth that when you see them at 3 years old, they started, you knew they were going to be a preacher. And at 13 and 14, you see it all the time, they started preaching. But that don't mean they ain't went through something. So we always gonna go through something. So we have to go back every now and then to where we used to be. Not where how we used to be, but when we first found Christ, when we first was reborn again. Somebody go ahead and do the hope of salvation, Hebrews 9 and 12.
Instead of continuing to focus on the current adversities and inappropriate responses, the writer draws attention to the big picture, which encompasses salvation, God's love, and his trustworthiness. In essence, the Christians are urged to take comfort in the fact that God has not given up on them. He has also not forgotten their diligence with expressing love for him, both past and present, by serving others. They have not forfeited God's promises. Salvation is not earned, it is inherited. The writer encourages persistent continuation of Christian living, perhaps out of awareness that how to proceed is a common human response to search instructions. The writer gives clear instructions as if he is thinking of the hall of faith in Hebrews 11. The writer says, we do not want to become lazy, but to imitate those who through faith and patience inherit what has been promised. Oh, you took them out. It speaks for itself, and that's something that also stood out to me is sometimes that we get complacent. And once we get complacent, then that gives the devil room to play and make us, lose faith. It can make us lose faith, even though we say we're mature Christians. But then once we stop and think about it for a second, we know that, that God is still in control. Because again, I have to use myself. Sometimes I get so tied up in my own thoughts that I be like, why? And I know that he's going to work it out his time and in his way. So, then, like I say, I asked the question, then turned right around and said, okay, my faith, you got to have faith. So I just think that in time, no matter if we stay in the word, then, we won't become so complacent.
And I think that goes back to that first part of the spiritual, the immaturity. Part of immaturity sometimes is being complacent, I think. And it is easy. Like I said, it amazes me how stuff that was happening way back then It is kind of happening now in a different way. The internet, our cell phones, our microwaves, has gotten us to a point that we're complacent. We ain't got to worry about what we're gonna cook. We ain't got to sit there and prepare the big meals no more because Glory Greens can do that. I ain't got clean greens no more. Then I cut them up, wash them. You know, didn't worry about worms everywhere, so I got to clean them out. So I ain't got to worry about that. Glory do that. I ain't got to get potatoes and cut them up and all that. Glory do that because they didn't have to put potatoes in it. Neck bones too high, so I ain't gonna dare put no neck bones in there, so I ain't worried about that. But if I did, I could get neck bones, guess what? I could get a big old pot and put it in some water and put it in the microwave and get what? I could cook them in there too, so I ain't even, I ain't even got to put them on early in the morning and let them simmer and all of that. I ain't got to do nothing.
Pastor, one thing we know, and all those of us like me that have tried to do is that there's no comparison between what you cook fast in the microwave and what you take your time to cook slow. There's no comparison.
That's our spiritual life, Sister Collins. Well, we try to make everything be right there on point. It's not. Just like this morning, it was not on point for me, so I asked Reverend Jordan, would he go ahead and teach so that we can get help me get a better understanding. I can't force it when it's not there. So, that's.
And we're not looking at the big picture, as it said here, because it ain't about the quickness. When you prepare that meal. It's about the effort that you put in and seeing and looking at the people's face when they taste it and the joy they have, your family have, sitting around, having conversations over something you prepared. Jesus is saying it is not about what I prepared, it's about the people that have been affected by what I prepared for them. The joy they got and the blessing. And we miss that because we're not looking at the bigger picture. Because we're just looking at the right now. And right now, I'm tired. Right now, I don't want to be bothered. Right now, I just don't want to deal with it. So we're going to go to McDonald's. And the bigger picture is, the McDonald's is killing us fast. Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
I just thought about this. Think about the food that our great grandmas, and our ancestors cooked. They cook with lard, they cook with fat, they cook with fat on top of fat, and throw some more fat on it. And if you didn't have enough fat on it, they weren't gonna eat it. And they still live alone. So because it wasn't fast food, it wasn't all healthy, but yet it's still. So we got to be able to not only look at the bigger picture, but we got to get out of that laziness that we're in. We're lazy in our studies. We're really lazy in our praise. We're lazy at home. We're lazy at work. And just, and granted, it's too hot to do about anything. But that don't mean you can get up, you can get up early in the morning, because it still is like, life is out early. And do what you need to do before it gets hot. Then you have some time in the afternoon. We're going to start to cool off a good, but you know what we say? Oh, it's too hot. All right. I overslept with God. I didn't want me to do it anyway. If he wanted me to do it, he'll woke me up. But so we have to get out of that. We have to step out of our comfort zone. And society has put us in a comfort zone that we're so used to right now. We're at the point, we made a comment a couple of, I think it was last week, maybe Bible study. We're so comfortable with not even remembering phone numbers no more. Because I got them right here. And the problem is we got so comfortable, we don't even remember our own phone number. If that cell phone died and we stranded side the road and somebody pulls up and say, can we call somebody for you? The only place we're gonna be able to call is 911. Because we ain't gonna know nobody else knows. Because we got complacent and lazy, we don't even remember the way we used to remember. We don't, as we say, we don't write down the way, and I think that's where the conversation came in, about writing down. We don't write down stuff no more. God told Moses to write down the commandments so they could see it, and not only for them, for the generations to come. Our ancestors wrote down on little cue cards and all of that recipes. We don't even write down recipes no more. We don't write down phone numbers. We ain't got that little black book no more with our phone numbers, or that Rolodex, or that pad that been tore up, got grease stains on it and all of that. With numbers on it that you can't even read or recognize no more. Because technology, while it's good, it has made us lazy. That's why we have to go back sometimes. Let's go ahead. We've got time to get finished this last. Assurance of God's promise, Hebrews 6, 13 through 20. If nobody else has nothing about that other section. Somebody read that for us.
God's faithfulness with his promise to Abraham is so prominently reflected in Old Testament scriptures. We know that Abraham's faith wavered, but God kept his promises. Although Abraham had to wait 25 years, he and his wife Sarah received the son that God promised. God's sovereignty played in the fact that he swore by himself and confirmed the unchanging nature of his promise to Abraham with an oath. The methodic description of hope as an anchor for the soul is a beautiful reminder to avoid discouragement that might lead to losing faith in God. Like an anchor that holds a ship or boat steady and firmly secured in water, hope in Jesus Christ provides the steadfastness and firmness of faith Christians need to stay on course to please God. Jesus, as our high priest, is presented as a reminder that believers have a priest who is superior to the Levitical high priest. Whereas Levitical high priest entered into the most holy place once per year and stood before God to atone for the nation's sin, Jesus Christ is God's presence at all times. As King and high priest, Jesus offers believers continuous, never-ending intercession.
And on that, some things don't happen overnight. You look at Abraham, it didn't happen overnight. Some things just happen in time. In God's time, because he's preparing us for what he's going to give us. Just like with all of us that are parents now, we've been youth, and our parents didn't give us everything we wanted right away. They had to prepare us for it. And we try to prepare our youth for it. And when our youth become parents, they're going to try to prepare their children for it. Some things we just don't get overnight. He prepares us for it. I'm going to tie in two things, then I'm tie two things in, and this will be my review to Brother McKay. The end of this says Jesus Christ is God's present at all times. As King and High Priest, Jesus offers believers continuous, never-ending intercession. The first part of our life application says, you go to the life application, Sister Mother. Discouragement is an ever-present threat in the face of adversity, especially when it's prolonged. Consider the intensity of the writer of Hebrews' efforts to acknowledge the fact in his letter. While he also encourages readers to persevere in building their faith, faith is often described as being like a muscle. Unless you exercise it, faith weakens and possibility actually to the point that it is being unreliable. Although it is usually unwelcome adversity can be a catalyst for faith. I might as well read this last part. For our printed text to the Sankofa and the case study, hope has been the primary theme throughout the Old and New Testament, from Genesis to Revelation. The essential role of hope in the lives of believers is addressed. Therefore, as the writer of Hebrews admonishes, we must move from the basics of Christianity and baby Christian status to spiritual maturity. Because Jesus is the ultimate high priest, because Jesus intercedes on our behalf on a daily basis, because we ain't got to wait for the pastor to get here to go into the pulpit to atone for our sins, because Jesus has died for us, we should always have hope, no matter what goes on in our life, that Jesus is going to intercede for us. No matter what the situation is, no matter how long the suffering is, no matter how long the pain is, we should have hope that Jesus is going to intercede on our behalf. And that hope is this right here, any day now. Any day now. Any day he's going to save me. Any day he's going to deliver me. Watch this. We buy the Amazon. We get on Amazon. We buy that part. We buy whatever it is on Amazon, on Temu, or whatever it is. We gonna get it. And they give us a date, a delivery date, all right? And we sit there every day now, I'm gonna get it. And that delivery date don't come, we go and look. But we don't lose hope. We get upset a little bit, but we know it's gonna come. Matter of fact, some of us you look out the door, make sure. We got our ring, so we go every time we get that thing, we look. So we know, we got that hope that it's gonna come. And before, let me help some of my season saints. That was before Temu and Amazon and all that. When you went and filled out your 1040 for taxes, when they had to mail your check for the tax return, after you did it, you knew it was gonna come. You had the hope. Any day now. Any day now. It's going to come. And so, same thing with Christ. We got to have the hope and reassurance that any day now, we're going to get blessed. Any day now, I'm going to get my healing. Any day now, I'm going to get my breakthrough. So, in the famous words of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, keep hope alive. If I get the hands alive.
At this time, we're gonna have our high point from
The Bible is full of stories about people of faith, including Abraham. His circumstances were not the best, but he still believed God's promise by faith. God kept his promise because of God's faithfulness. All believers are the seed of Abraham through the sacrifices of Jesus Christ. So this assures us that God is fulfilling his promises for our lives. We just have to hold on to the promises of God by faith, regardless of how long it takes. We have to exercise our faith to grow spiritually.
Amen. Time of hope. We all know we all are the sinful and good. You know what it is? Anybody want to check on something that we might have missed in our class or high point? If not, just tell me to come on. Like you usually do for
And while she's doing that, Brother McChapel, a couple of announcements. One is from, we'll read this also a little bit later, but from the WMS. Thank you for all your WMS society, your WMS society has done for the Hale Harley area, Hill Harley area, and this is from Sister Doris Pride and Sister Miser. Thanking you for all that the WMS has done, as well as the YPD. One other announcement, VBS starts on tomorrow, 6 p.m., what, 5?
5 to 7.
5 to 7. From 5 to 7, please come out and support. We ask you to keep Pastor and all others in prayer, as I will not be here Monday and Tuesday because I have to travel down to the Council of Bishops meeting in Orlando on Monday and Tuesday. So I will be there on Monday and Tuesday. This afternoon, if you're not doing that immediately following service at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be preaching at St. James and Quincy, where our very own Reverend Jessica Ford is a pastor for the Sunday event. And Thursday, we will be at Deliverance Baptist at 6 p.m. for their revival. These are the announcements that we have. Let us stand. Let's offering. All things come with thee, O Lord.
All things come with thee, O Lord, and of thine own have we given unto thee.
Is there more announcement from the floor? Anyone like have this item say? If not, we ready for adjournment.
I believe my AME Church Family must grow and grow, and I must make it our priority to make it so. Every member Christian, every Christian worker, every worker trained, so a worker need not be ashamed. This we ask in Jesus' name. We have come, we have studied, we have learned. So until our next come together to study God's word, may His rich blessings reside with you, and may His grace be eternally yours. Amen.
Amen. You know